In this short episode of the World of Maps, we will answer the very simple question: what is a map? But first, a little about me. My name is Ian Whited. I have worked in geography since 2013 for federal agencies including the U.S. Forest Service, the National Park Service, Natural Resources Conservation Service, and the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. For these agencies, I worked in amazing places like redwoods and Lassen Volcanic National Parks, as well as lava beds and Oregon Caves National Monuments. This work mostly involved mapping plants like small invasives or weedy plants in places like Crater Lake National Park and all the way up to large trees in Lincoln National Forest. I have even mapped and tracked wildlife like greater sage grouse in southern Oregon at Heart Mountain National Antelope Refuge, and cattle from the air at Lake Mead National Recreation Area in Nevada. So you might have guessed, maps and cartography, the creation of maps, have been a very important part of my career and continue to be a very important part of my life. Maps are so widespread you probably don't notice how prolific they are. We likely see them every day in one form or another. You might even be looking at one right now. In fact, I bet you are if you're watching this video. So what is a map? I'm sure if you saw one, you'd know it. Maps are so ubiquitous now that you might have never put much thought into it. Webster's has many definitions for the word map, but in this series we will look at only 3 of them. The first definition: a representation, usually on a flat surface, of the whole or part of an area. This might be better said as a usually 2-dimensional representation of a 3-dimensional area. This is probably the most obvious and general definition of a map, and the one we use almost every day. These are the road maps we use on our phones and GPSs. They can also be maps that represent the elevation or depth of the terrain being presented in cases such as topographic maps and sea charts. The second definition: a representation of the celestial sphere or part of it. The most beautiful type of map, if you ask me, and the most specialized. These are not just the maps of the night sky and constellations you see in science stores, but they can be maps of the planets and their gravitational relationships, complex maps of our galaxy, and even maps of the universe, such as this map of all the galaxies so far identified. And finally, a diagram or other visual representation that shows the relative position of the parts of something. These maps can be extremely variable, like geologic maps that tell us what sort of ground we are standing on, or perhaps how old. These are often used to help paleontologists find fossils of dinosaurs, and petroleum companies find oil. However, these can also be maps of the human anatomy, like this map of the circulatory system. As you can see, there are so many different kinds of maps that it will be very hard to cover all of them in this series, but I will do my best. There are maps of the very small, like this map of protein, and maps of the very large, like the globes that represent the Earth or other celestial bodies we see in our classrooms. Thanks for joining me on this short and inaugural episode of the World of Maps. Next time in the World of Maps, we'll take a look at the history of maps and ask the question, why do we map?